world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
So woodyoutdoors.com.au, and you can find that shirt that I've created. Pre-orders are open until the 31st of January.
Mate, I love it. I will put all the links in the show notes, guys. So click on that. I will have a image of the shirt as the episode cover art as well.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it.
All right, Woody, we've got you joining us tonight, mate. Pretty excited for this one because we only really got in touch today, but I saw your post of an absolutely cracking T-shirt and went, mate, I've got to get you on the podcast. I'll let you describe it to the listeners and, tell us what you've done.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Basically, like a lot of Aussie gun owners, I've been watching in horror at our government's response, to the terrorist attack down in Bondi. And one of the things that really stuck with me, and I think a lot of shooters, was when it was reported that the New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, said that he was bringing in tough new laws to ban straight pull shotguns and shotguns that have belt-fed magazines. And it turned into a joke, immediately, which is the Aussie way. And, we always joke among our friends, it's tough times ahead, we've got to hand in our belt-fed shotguns and that sort of thing. It got the wheels turning, and I was thinking, what does a belt-fed shotgun even look like? So 2026, right? So I just jumped on ChatGPT and I said, what's a belt-fed shotgun? And it drew this illustration of a belt-fed shotgun. And I was like, oh, that would look pretty good on a T-shirt. So I know my way around Photoshop and that sort of thing. So I got to work, vectorizing a line drawing of, what ChatGPT had inspired. And I just put it up on my Instagram account. I just put a poll up there and said, is this worth making, in a T-shirt? And overwhelmingly, yes. I think a lot of people saw the humor in it, a bit of a lighthearted take on what's a pretty tough situation. And so then I opened it up for pre-sales, and it seems a lot of people are keen.
Mate, I love it. It's hilarious. And I think that in these trying times, you need to have a good laugh because, it does look pretty grim for a lot of shooters out there. And the more it sort of has been evolving, the more we continue to see that, which is, disappointing, but it is the nature of the beast as well. So, mate, congrats. I thought it was a very funny, original idea. And I know I've said a couple of times if people are following my Instagram or my Facebook is that, oh no, they're coming for my Nerf guns. That's pretty much the only thing that I could equate when they started talking about these belt-fed shotguns. Mate,
water pistols, water pistols, anything that shoots a projectile, apparently. So, giddy up.
It's one of those things you sit there and just go, I don't know how we arrived at this situation. And we're recording. I don't know if people follow the news, but Lake Cargelligo, we've had, unfortunately, a couple of people shot and killed there. The gunman's still on the run. And very interestingly enough, it's another non-licensed firearm owner. 3 people dead. These laws have been put in and they've banned everything, and yet we're still seeing criminals with firearms doing heinous acts like we've seen. I think the poor lady was pregnant, like just pretty disgraceful. And, where are we at? We're sitting here going, the good people, the people that are law-abiding firearms owners that don't do anything wrong are being punished, and yet we're going to continue to see criminals do the wrong thing. I mean, again, Australia Day is tomorrow, and, it's a big day. Well, in my opinion, it's a very big day to recognise us as a country, where we've come from, where we're going. And, I think we've lost our way a little bit on that. However, I think the police foiled a plot for someone who was going to make Molotov cocktails and throw it at crowds in the Gold Coast, I think, off the top of my head. And I just sit there and go, what are we going to start banning anything now that could cause damage? Because, oh my God, like, what are we going to be able to do? Are we going to be able to back to the COVID days where we're locked in our houses? It's pretty insane.
It's super insane. Australia has been regarded as having the toughest gun laws on the planet. And it does offer a fair amount of security, and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, there are still evil people out there. And they're going to use whatever means they can get their hands on to commit evil acts, because that's their nature. And the fact that law-abiding citizens and the most heavily regulated and scrutinized industry on the planet is now under attack by our own government, is unacceptable, in my opinion. We are the good guys. We haven't done anything wrong, and yet we've been absolutely vilified, and the media placed us in a position where people feel scared of lawful gun owners for no reason. So it's very sad to see, and it's definitely a long road ahead. And it's been good to see some organizations come together to, work on some solutions, and how do we combat and how do we engage with government, when they're in this mindset, and how do we also reassure the public, that we're the good guys. We're the ones actually out there doing conservation work. We're not out to hurt anyone. And in fact, given the opportunity, we would protect innocent life if we were afforded that opportunity as well.
Well, I think a couple of things to that. I think I know our organisations are getting out there and now trying to do things, but I think the horse has bolted. And I think we've done a really poor job as a shooting community, and not so much as a community. I'll say organisationally, because those governing bodies, the organisation bodies, really have struggled to promote shooting to non-shooters and to promote what we do as a necessity, what we do as a safe and just a normal everyday thing. And this is the problem, where we have just sat back and, I look at the Shooter Farmer Fisher Party. I like those guys. I've had Rob Borsak Jr. on the podcast. Great guy. But I really do feel that it's very reactive. It's reactive stuff. It's they're not big enough as a political party to be taken seriously by government, and that's where we're at. I mean, and look, you've got to call a spade a spade. From my perspective, going forward, I sort of sit there and go, I probably won't vote Shooter Farmer Fishers, and there'll be a few people that don't like that, and that's fine. But I just don't think they're big enough. They're not they focus on state level. They don't focus on federal. I think you need a political party that does both to protect both. I think we need to be mindful that Labor and Liberal are not our friends, neither of them. The Greens are definitely not. Make sure that those parties are not. The only way I really see forward is One Nation, personally, because
they've done a lot.
They're the only ones that now, if you're looking at polling, and I don't think polling is very accurate sometimes, but they're saying that they are practically the opposition now because they've got a higher preference than the Liberal coalition. Well, the coalition looks like it's split anyway. And I sort of sit there and go, this could be the greatest thing that's ever happened for shooters. But I also then think we need to be a bit more pragmatic, in the sense that if you're voting just because you are a shooter on shooting things, I think you're very limited in what you can actually achieve. And I think we need to be looking at it broader, going, we need to vote on the values of the country, including shooting. But do we, I think we do need a Shooter Farmer Fishers. Don't get me wrong. We need someone that are very thing. But are they going to be ticking really big boxes for the broader community, or are they just another small right-wing sort of thing? And I've had John Ruddock from Libertarian Party on. I really like a lot of their policies. I like less government. I like, rewarding people who do the wrong thing and smashing criminals. I like that. That makes sense to majority of the people. That party is too small as well. And this squabbling between each other for similar votes. I think we need to look at it and go, hey, what is the best for the country and for us going forward? Because we are in a position now that I think it's very clear that neither any of the majors are not our friends, are not on our side, and Liberal and Labor are cut from the same cloth. That was evident. Exactly what's happened, the voting, even the ones that I really liked. I've said before, I like Andrew Hastie. Man, I've lost so much respect for him after he flipped and he's done this hate speech bill. I thought he was better than that. The only one I still sort of back is Jacinta Price, but geez, I hope she gets out of the Liberal Party, because I just think they toe the party line and they get corrupted, or they get persuaded, or they get pushed, because they if they're not in step, then they're not going to have a career. And I think that's a big problem. And that's hurting us. That's hurting us as shooters. And we saw this. We saw, the knee-jerk reaction, especially here in New South Wales, was to ban firearms. And federally, they've done the exact same. I'm extremely disappointed with Dan Repicoli. I had him on a previous podcast that I did. Extremely disappointed. He's a shooter. And for him not to vocally, I think he's friends of shooting as a parliamentarian, and he gets the politicians together to spruik the benefits, and he's let these rubbish laws be pushed onto other firearms owners that he's supposed to be one of us. Like, that is, Bridget McKenzie, I've got a lot of respect for her, the Roy Butlers of the world, all those people I've got a lot of respect for. Phil Donato's, they stood up. You've got Dan, he's part of the federal government. He holds a position there, and he's just rolled over. As far as I'm concerned, I'm very disappointed. And, I sit there and go, again, we've punished law-abiding people for the actions of two terrorists and the failures of our government, because they allowed, some of the things I continue to hear is that not only was he on a student visa for, 20 years. I don't know how long you're a student, but anyway, that he
triple doctorate.
Oh, must be. He must be a genius. That he had no fixed address. So where was his firearms being stored? Like, there was just so many things that were just alarm bells, got knocked back, then was given it. And I just sit there and go, okay. So now, because of failures from elsewhere, we've been screwed, essentially, as law-abiding firearms owners. We've been screwed. You guys haven't done anything wrong, but to prevent a criminal from breaking the law, we're going to put more laws on the law-abiding people. It's the dumbest thing in the world.
It's ridiculous, especially as the laws they've proposed and passed would not have affected the outcome at Bondi at all, because, he was using a hunting rifle and shotgun, and it's a complete misdirection and distraction from the multi-levels of government failure that led to this event. Obviously, number one, letting the hate grow in this country, letting terrorists march across our landmarks with terrorist flags. That should never have happened. They should have been arrested on the spot. Then, an individual with a family member with an open ASIO investigation against them, granted a firearms license, and then several PTAs, obviously, because he had several registered firearms. Just failures on so many levels. It's absolutely disgusting that the blame is then put onto Australian shooters who have done nothing wrong.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this is a really big turning point for the country to look at why are we constantly pandering to criminals and pandering to the people that do the wrong thing, and we are unfortunately punishing the good. And it's not the correct way to go about it. It's over governance completely. It's impacting a massive amount of livelihoods. Like they said that they put in, I think the cafes in Bondi got grants because they lost business. And then overnight here, they've just cancelled all import permits. What about all the firearms agencies? What about the mum and dad companies in the bush that sell ammo? Like,
they're already affected.
Oh, 100% they are. It's ridiculous. But what about, I heard the other day, and I don't know how true this is, I'm going to say it is, but I heard that if you had a PTA in for anything that is now being banned, here I'm talking New South Wales, obviously that's where I'm from, that you are not going to be refunded or reimbursed for any of it. So even if you
I read that too.
Now, I don't know if this is 100% true, so I'll take it with a grain of salt. Do your own research. You should always anyway. Don't listen to an idiot like me. But this is what I'm perceived as what's happened. And how is that fair? And then on top of that, they're now talking about the gun buyback is going to be like not a tariff, an extra cost to taxpayers that you are going to have to pay. So we're going to have to pay to buy back our own guns, and the wider community are going to have to pay. And this comes back on what I was talking about before. The point is saying that we've done a real poor job of our organisations, I feel, in putting media out there and advertisements and, trying to get the broader community on board. Because when you look at the lack of advertising that we've done, and then you look at what the media do, and a perfect example was there's 4 million guns in Australia. That's 1 million more than at the time of Port Arthur. Yeah, well, okay. We've also had, I think off the top of my head, it's a 10 million population increase. So when you actually look at the percentages are still 8% lower than when it was Port Arthur or something like that. Again, do your own research. Yeah. But
which are irrelevant numbers anyway.
Well, that
doesn't increase the risk to public safety, whether there are more or not.
No, exactly right. If you're safe, you're safe. But they had that. Yeah. I think it was the Sydney Morning Herald. They had a map. You could search your address and it told you how many guns were around you. Okay, have they ever been a problem? And if they haven't, and they've been there for so long, why are you putting that negative context on firearms owners? It's a very interesting dynamic that we want to ban guns and, this and that. And then you look at the politicians like Albanese who's walking around with security with firearms. I was like, hold on, mate. Exactly. Like, I'm a big believer. Anyone that should be trying to take guns or confiscate guns or buy guns back, make sure that none of your security have that. Make sure you're not protected by that because you're trying to ban it. I think that's a fair call. We can't even use firearms for protection. No. It's crazy. It's a really interesting dynamic here in Australia.
They obviously value their own lives over the greater public. But again, just being vilified for the fact that my legally owned guns, which are safely locked in my compliant gun safe, are somehow a threat to public safety. It's actually insulting that is spooked. But to tie that back to your original point of us not having done enough advertising, and I agree, we haven't worked on our public image well enough. The fact that the public were able to be turned on us so quickly, we do share a bit of a blame in that. I don't think there has been enough community outreach from our side before this tragedy. And therefore, the general public are so, I guess, ignorant and unaware of what guns actually are used for, how they're stored, how they're managed, that they can easily be frightened by the fact they don't know enough and they could just believe whatever the news tell them.
Agreed. And I think that's one of the biggest issues is when you're talking about just the issues that we have in regards to our visibility or perception from the public. This is a major problem, but as I said, I think the horse is bolted. And, I sort of sit there and go, with the amount of members places like SSAA have, why haven't they done more? Why have they sat on their hands and really not pushed out there? And it's too late. Now I see them jumping out there and jumping on podcasts and jumping on, their YouTube channel. And it's like, well, what have you guys been doing? You're happy to take everybody's money. You're happy to have the members that you have. You're happy to say that you're this vocal branch. Look what's just happened on the back of you dropping the ball. And people are probably not going to like that, but they've dropped the ball here, and that is their fault. It's not the average shooter's fault that, they're not out there on media pushing things. It's the bodies, and anybody out there that has not been pushing and spending money and creating and trying to make public perception of shooters better, you have failed us. And, and then, I don't like to sort of be a conspiracy theorist too much, but I sort of sit there and go, is SSAA really that upset at this when now everyone has to join a club?
That's exactly
they're
right.
going to make
it's
a
more
fortune.
money in their pockets.
More money,
Yeah.
more range fees,
Right.
more everything. So are they really sitting there going, damn, we want to stop these new laws?
Exactly.
Are they? Because, you're already talking that gun licenses, I think, will go through the roof. I think you'll get more people get them.
Well, every man's going to get his wife,
Probably,
a gun license so that they can share the burden
Yep.
of, limits and that sort of thing. Imagine if there had been, before this, obviously, but imagine if there had been outreach campaigns, advertising campaigns, like a national campaign, come and try shooting for a day. Special $99, fill out your Form 33, and come and try shooting for a day. And SSAA Rangers try to reach out to the public that way. And people that otherwise might not have known those kind of opportunities actually exist. That's always existed. Any member of the public can go to a gun range supervised and try shooting. But SSAA have never advertised it. They've never put it out there to the public to say that this opportunity exists. And so in fact, a lot of people that I meet, when I tell them what I do for a living, they're like, oh, guns. We have guns, Some people don't even know that's a thing. It's definitely something that could be done better. I think there's a lot of lessons that have come out of this, and our public-facing communications need to drastically improve. And that's something that I'm pretty passionate about, is, educating people, not just on firearms. Like, obviously, I'm very passionate about firearms. Look at my Instagram account. It's all guns. But I'm pretty passionate about talking about prepared citizenship. Carrying a couple of tools, first aid kit, maybe a tourniquet if you're up for it, flashlights, some equipment that you can carry to, be somewhat prepared for some kind of situation to unfold, to help a family member, a friend, or even help a stranger in need and that sort of thing. And I think all that can sort of tie into, being a good citizen, being a true Australian, in my opinion.
Well, multiple things there. If you've listened to the podcast, I talk about I've got a tourniquet in every car that I have and everything like that. First aid kit, EpiPens, anything I can do to make sure that other people are safe, or they're not just necessarily for me. It could be there's a car crash in front of us, right? So, and I think that is what most Aussies should be like. I'll touch on a couple of things you just said there. One is that when we talk about getting the media, getting the name out there, I think that's really important. And, this is where we go back to who you're going to vote for, and the power they have. Now, if you look at different parties, and I think it'll play out in the next couple of elections, but look at the targeting of social media. You just mentioned about your social media account has all firearms on it. Well, I know, and I've been seeing people that are getting banned on Meta because of firearms content, and that is no accident. Let's make that very clear. That's a deliberate attack on people who have firearms, and I think that's true. Again, who you vote for. Let's be honest, the uni party, which is Labor and Liberal, they are both the same. Don't matter what they say, because they both lie like crazy. They are all about controlling the masses and controlling the narrative so that they look good. That's right. They're probably the most fearful they've ever been now because of One Nation. And there's been comments already. The Prime Minister, he's already said that he's very concerned because of the trends, because he wants Liberal in if Labor aren't in, because they keep it amongst themselves. They don't really do anything for the betterment of the country. So
it's like a permanent gridlock of Parliament.
Exactly. And so you look at that, and look, I've listeners will know pretty much 12 months ago, I ended up in emergency from wasp stings. Glad to tell you that you might have seen me, I put my leg up before. I had another one, back to emergency. My leg gets infected from a wasp sting and it's blown up like a balloon. So I was sitting there though, and our emergency is so under-resourced and understaffed, and to the point where they had to give me an IV, and they had to gravity feed it because they didn't have the machine, the pump. And the nurse was chatting to a student nurse saying, we've only got a couple. We need more, but they just don't supply them. We don't have funding. So unless it's urgent, try to gravity feed. That's disgraceful. I paid nearly $50,000 in tax last year. I want to know why I'm taxed so bloody much, and yet simple resources where I pay, not only do I pay tax, I pay Medicare, and I'm in also private health insurance. So I'm less of a burden on the government as well. How is it that we are all paying all this money and yet our hospital systems are a joke? Our nurses get paid. They're understaffed. They get paid crap. Doctors, they're screaming for doctors. How is all this occurring? And yet we have money I think we sent 43 million to Palestine or some ridiculous thing like that for something that we should not even be involved in. And that we continue to make donations to the UN and World Health Organization, all this rubbish, when we can't even fund our hospitals. Mate, it's such a joke. And I sit there and go that we really need a change. And this is why I come back to, I think we need to be a bit more proactive and go, we shouldn't be, in my opinion, again, people are probably not going to agree with this, that we shouldn't be just looking at a party like the Shooters Party just for shooting, because it's everything else that we are living as well. It has to be someone that looks after all of it and is a strong voice with the chance to have majority numbers or major numbers to make a difference. And unfortunately, as much as I do like the boys at SFFP, I can't see any other option than One Nation. It's crazy.
It's hard to back the smaller guy because, their ability to affect change, because they are smaller, is going to be quite limited. So, you sort of think, what's the best value I'm going to get out of my vote? You look at someone's Shooters and you're like, yes, great, but what kind of value am I going to get out of voting for them? And then you look at the sudden rallying support for One Nation, and then all of a sudden that becomes quite attractive. But you are totally right. We do need to have a more holistic approach, because the corruption, there's no better word for it. The corruption we've seen has infested, pretty much every level of government. It's not just the policing branch that manage firearms. We're looking at hospitals, education, the money that's being wasted on senseless programs that don't enrich anyone's life.
Mate, the NDIS is the biggest joke in the world. I think they've just uncovered, there's a bloke who's doing a YouTube on it, which I love how our media outlets can't even do this, but we've just got some random bloke with a phone. He's been able to track down in Lakemba, I think it was, an address that has 9 NDIS businesses. He sat on it for a month. Not one person went in. The doors never opened. And I think they receive a couple of mil. Like, come on, guys. Like, at what point does our government take this seriously? And instead of, bouncing back and forward and arguing and Albanese worrying about photos of him in a bikini that's altered, like, I mean, grow up. It's a joke, mate. Like, it's what the hell? It's almost the world's gone a bit insane. Like I saw what is it? Vic Police put out the other day that they're chasing a jogger because he made a homophobic slur. Oh, look, hey guys with the machetes, you carry on hacking people. We're all good. But someone made a homophobic slur. Now, I'm not condoning that, but I'm like, come on. Like, is that what we're really wasting our police resources on? For something like that. I think we need to have a really good hard look at with what everything is going, because it's just a bit crazy. And talking about what the Meta is doing and blocking, and even, Albanese trying to ban X, which is the only free speech platform and the only one that shows everything. And that's the thing. If you are only watching what's coming along Instagram and Facebook and all that, you're not seeing the full picture. Like, I try and keep abreast of most things in the world and look at Iran. I don't see anything about Iran on Facebook or Instagram. You jump over to X and they're showing how many people are being executed and killed and the rallying, the distress of people over there. And is that why it wants to be banned? So nothing can get out there so that they can lie and say, oh, everything's good.
Yeah, it doesn't suit what the messaging that they're trying to put out. I've seen it too. Like in Iran, they're essentially lining Christians up and beheading them. But mainstream news outlets in Australia just haven't reported on it.
It's insane when you sit there and think about it. And then that ties back. I think that also ties back to the fabric of community. And then that comes back to impact us as gun owners, because, people are scared out there. And I get that. I sit there and it's funny because so many people have firearms, but they don't really talk about them. And I get that. And I'm not against that, but I sort of sit there and go, the amount of high profile people like jobs, doctors, lawyers, right through. I'm a teacher and I'm, obviously happy to talk about that I have firearms and I do the right thing. And I preach that. I preach about being a responsible, law-abiding person. I don't see an issue in that. And I saw a great comment because I think Chris Minns called out, if you've ever thought about the Rural Fire Service, now's the time to step up. And I saw someone post, and if he listens, good on you, mate. I love it. He said, if you can't trust me with a firearm, you can't trust me with a fire truck. And I was like, you know what? That is so true. So true. And I sort of sit there and go, is that where, because, I'm very big against not having shooters do a rally, a walk, because it just takes a couple of bad apples that might not even be shooters to cause havoc, and then our name's tarnished. And I was thinking
it could be a false flag thing where people jump in to cause chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was thinking, what is a way that we can make our presence known, or how valuable we are? And as horrible as it sounds, I thought about things like the RFS and the SES and all those voluntary things of people who volunteer, who are shooters that have just been screwed over. And I just sit there and go, you know what? I feel like just saying, guys, pull up stumps. Just stop it and send a message. Tell your local politician, I'm actively in this and no longer. I donate money here, no longer. I do this, no longer. And really hurt them in the back pocket, because they rely on this, as we said, the Aussie spirit of RFS is very under-resourced. We saw that down in Victoria. We saw that I only saw it on X again. The fire is saying, I've got no air conditioning in my truck. This truck barely works, blah, 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 blah. But yet we're spending, I think she spent 40 odd million on machete bins, but she can't even fund the RFS. Like, come on. Yeah. Like, what are our priorities? What are the priorities that we are doing as a society, and how do we fix this? And I think that's where, I don't know. It sounds horrible, and I'll probably cop some flack for saying this, but people doing SES and things like that, while they're doing a great job and looking after other Aussies, I do feel that is a bargaining chip that we probably need to start playing. Things like that to say, listen, mate, we do so much, because there's so many good shooters out there and hunters, we are just the scapegoat. And if it's all right for us to, if it's all right for us to go and save people in the RFS, if it's all right for us to go out as SES, if it's all right for us to do whatever else it might be, but you can't have your firearm. Yeah. You're not trustworthy. We don't think you have the values and the morals to be trustworthy with more than 4 guns if you're a hunter. That is ridiculous. Like, it's so disappointing.
Exactly. I agree. And you could draw a lot of parallels, in the personality types and the type of Australian. The type of Australian that puts their hand up to help people, whether they're in the Rural Fire Service or the SES or any type of other volunteer position in the Army Reserves, most of those guys with that mentality are firearms owners, because they're the people that take responsibility for their community and as well as their own lives. So I think if there was some kind of strike action, it would be significant. Because it's the type of people that are in those voluntary positions are usually firearms owners, because that's the mentality.
It's almost like, I think actually you might be onto something there, a nationwide strike, and not just from like volunteer services, things like that, even work. Pull up stumps and go, you know what, there's however many of us there are. And then if you could persuade your partner, one person that all of a sudden we start to look like there's millions of people. Make it known is that, calling in sick. This will be a strike. I won't be at school. For me, it would be school, but I won't be at work. Yeah. I won't do it. And then all of a sudden, maybe that's what this needs. Maybe, when there's the turmoil of that the government goes, holy crap, we need these people to keep the economy running. We need these people to do the jobs that they do. I get it's short-term pain, Losing money, it's never a good thing. But I think that's where we're really poor. Unions do it and they do it well, and they usually get benefit. They get the outcome. Shooters union, hello. Haven't seen anything like that from you guys. Why isn't our union out there working with the other unions? I think that was where realistically the duck hunting got overturned, because the unions got involved, because they hit them up and said, mate, a lot of your
guys, very powerful.
Exactly. And I sit there and go, well, where's this? Again, I think I don't know whether it's just old people running these shows and they haven't thought about, using social media and YouTube and how to get to the public, or they've just thought it'll never happen, or that we're mates with this politician, or we've got that. And look, I think the how quick it can turn is obvious in what happened with Bondi. I mean, you had Chris Minns, the Premier, who was backing the hunting and conservation bill. And I'm sure the boys at Shooters Farmer Fishers thought that bill was getting approved. And as quickly as they thought that was going to be approved, it got absolutely flipped. And now we're in a worse off position, way worse position. And we're leading the country in that. Like, that's ridiculous. But
it is.
Does it just show a lack of power? Does it a lack of influence, a lack of them really caring? I don't know. That's just, as I said, I'm an idiot. That's my opinion.
It's a tough one to wrap your head around, and we saw it after Bondi. We saw people that we thought were on our side betray us. There's no other really word for it. They betrayed us in Parliament. I'm here in Queensland, so nothing's changed yet.
Dream. Except you got no public land to hunt.
Yeah, we can't hunt on public lands, but we're unaffected by the new laws at the moment. Obviously, the federal laws went through, and so we're going to see things stop coming in. But, our Liberal Premier, David Christophilly, is a country guy, and I think that's what's kind of held things back for now. But how long is that going to last? How much pressure is it going to take? The Olympics are coming up in southeast Queensland. Is the federal government going to strong-arm Queensland into submission by withholding funding for that? We don't know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to jump up and down and praise Mr. Christophilly at the moment. But at the moment, he does seem to be holding the tide back. But that's not to say that won't change. I've seen how quickly things can change. Let me run one thing by you, since we're talking about voluntary organisations and the type of mindset of Australians that are willing to jump in and lend a hand, and, that's the Aussie way. Imagine if there was a voluntary position you could apply and be trained for as some kind of public safety officer in a voluntary position, and it's a armed position, with some kind of concealed carry permission and training and that sort of thing. And that way we have good guys with guns in the community that can put an end to things, and not an American style system where anyone can carry. Because then how do you know who's a good guy and who's a bad guy? But imagine if there was a voluntary corps, or, some sort of office you could hold as a civilian, where you were in a position of trust, and that you could protect the community when the community needed it. When seconds can't, the cops are only minutes away, right? So what's your thoughts on something like that?
Whether you bond over streaming binge-worthy videos, watching sports recaps, video gaming, or by unplugging altogether, the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid helps keep you connected throughout your journey. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Available connectivity features and functionality vary by model. Package pricing, trials, and term lengths vary by model. Video streaming and games are only available while parked.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I think it's a fantastic idea. I've said this previously. I don't think I've said on the podcast, but in conversations with a lot of people, Our police force is very under-resourced. And I think they do a fantastic job. I've got a lot of mates that are coppers, and they do a great job. I would love to see that, we have the Army. We have some great training, years of experience in people in the Army. And I've got so many mates who get out of the Army, ex-infantry, and the majority of them have been just going into like warehouse jobs or labourers jobs because they haven't got those skills that transfer over to the, civvy world. And I've thought about them being, paired up with police officers. Don't send them back to uni to do the policing degree or any of that rubbish. But they've got tactical experience. They've got, firearms experience. They've got situational experience. They've got far longer, better training, in my opinion, than police.
Absolutely. Especially when it comes to shoot, no shoot drills, PID on your target, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
They're far more experienced, far better trained.
But they
than police officers.
They don't know the laws. But then you know what? If you partnered them up with a police officer who's done, gone through Goulburn, here in New South Wales, it's Goulburn, gone through university, whatever it might be, and you pair them up, you've got one of each. You've now got this skill set of a team. You improve the amount of resources. There's so much benefit to that. And then if you have something like, I like your idea, have extremely vetted, extremely trained people who have the ability to protect, because you're right. How often do you hear or see something going on? How many times have we seen how many times have we seen in Victoria machete wielding thugs running through the shopping malls?
Yeah.
Okay. Have the police got there? Have the police stopped it? No. You've seen, I think there was one here, I think it was Bondi again, the shopping scene up here in Sydney, at That's Bondi right. Westfields, there was a stabbing. He stabbed a few people. Again, I'm a big fan of the, as I've said it before, I'm a big fan of castle law. I think you should be able to protect your own and your family within your house. I think anyone that is a criminal, as soon as you break that law, you've given up your rights, as far as I'm concerned. Yes,
I agree.
So I think that's just a common sense approach. I don't understand why we don't look at it that way. But then going a step further, so out in public that there are people that are able to protect, I think that's a great idea. And I think that, as you said, I don't want it like America. I don't want every Tom, Dick and Harry walking down the street with a firearm, because there are a lot of people that shouldn't have that. And I think you see that in the States as well. Not saying that you're not walking past a criminal that's doing that illegally anyway. You don't know, right? So, but having an amount like, we do it with the RFS, we do it with the SES, having something similar that is a protective service for those times, most definitely. I think that would be an absolutely great idea. And but I don't think one of the reasons they probably won't want to do that is because if that works really well and it shows that people are using firearms in a positive manner to protect the community more than police, we have a big problem then, don't we? That we can't force more firearms laws, that we can't do that. And I do think there's a lot of some of these laws coming about control. And we saw that during COVID, that push for control. And I think the hate speech law is about that too, that if you criticize or publicly put someone down, you can potentially spend 5 years in jail. That's, that is concerning that, and Premier Minns has said it, we don't have free speech, that the only ones that should have free speech is the government. I was like, well, hold on, what? I think they keep forgetting what government means. It's to govern, not to, dictate. I think there's a big discrepancy, but if only that, mate, I love it. I wish it would have legs, and I wish there would be more there. I think a couple of our politicians need to have a think of that. And, probably One Nation would be the ones that would support something like that and push that. Yeah. Because I agree. I think that's something that would, I know so many ex-army blokes that are shooters, that are very well trained, that are, people I've got a lot of respect for, I completely trust. Man, they would be the perfect people to be able to do, have some sort of special permit for example. I mean, you saw that at Bondi. The bloke that the copper that did shoot them, he's a pistol shooter. Now, he's definitely not getting his skills from the 2 shoots or 1 shoot a year they have to do to retain their pistol. Like, come on. Like, if that doesn't show you that, and but good example, love the bloke, Ahmed I think his name was, who put his life on the line to grab that firearm. It didn't
so brave.
Yeah, mate, and even more so, he doesn't know how to operate the firearm. He got it and had no idea what to do with it. Now, that's a concern. Imagine that bloke actually did it. He could have shot him. He could have, shot him in the leg, incapacitated him, whatever. Instead, he got back up. I think he joined back up with his son and got another firearm, and potentially killed more people. Like, I actually think we should go a bit further and have basic training. And I've said this for a long time. I think that we should have not conscription, but I think that every person should do some sort of basic training, and as a bare minimum. And you see it overseas. You see a lot of countries crying for it or doing it. Or I know there's a couple of countries that have now gone back to teaching students in school how to operate firearms in case anything ever happens and the general public were needed to defend the homeland. Like, it's an interesting concept. And I think that we as a society are very lackadaisical with that, because we're on an island or a continent where we're surrounded by water. It's not that easy to invade us per se. I think it's easier than people realise with our lack of resources to our defence forces and our technology, but that's a completely separate topic we could go on for hours about.
It is. And I think also, like, invasion by an enemy force is quite unlikely, if we're honest with ourselves and we make a tactical assessment. But maybe we are experiencing some kind of invasion anyway, with the ideals that we've imported into this country and the attitudes towards Jews and other religions and that sort of thing. It's a bit quieter at the start, but I think also we've got to be aware that the Australia that we're in now is not what it was 25 years ago.
Well, I've always been a big fan of any country you go to, you adapt their customs and their way of life. And, I've said it before. I think that there's some Arab countries that do it really well. That, like, if I went over there and my wife came with me, she would have to wear the hijab or the burqa or whatever it might be. And you know what? That's their country. That's their rules. That's what we should do, because it's their country. I personally would never go to another country and demand my rights and my way of life when I've chosen to go to that country knowing.
And they would never accept that.
No, they wouldn't. But I think it's a very interesting dynamic at the moment where the Western civilizations are not doing that. And they are completely
too scared to be called racists.
I think so, yeah.
Well, let people walk all over.
I think so. Look at Saudi Arabia. I look at those guys, and I think they do a fantastic job in what they do, and they're very straight down the line. Japan, Japan, this is the way it's going to be. We're very proud of our heritage and our culture, and I think that comes back to a different argument here in Australia. Like, forget the US there and the UK. I think they're all a bit crazy, but I think from what we're doing is, I think we haven't got that solid foundation of what we are. We're still bickering over, colonization, invasion. Like, tomorrow is going to be a perfect day. You'll see the invasion days, survival day rallies, all this. And, look, I'm Aboriginal. So I sit there and I don't get it personally, because me personally, I don't know how we can blame people years back, and we're talking generations back, for something that ancestors did. That has now impacted me. I don't get it. I've been able to make a great life for myself. I know my kids will have a great life. It's choices, right? And, I don't understand. And I think this continual divide and trying to blame everyone and say this is a problem. And I just don't see us moving forward and progressing as a society. And I think that then comes with, we're so torn and not moving forward as one, is that then we're so worried about being labelled as racist or this, that there is not those set of ideals moving forward that we want to honour and say, hey, this is the culture. And I see it, I consistently see it saying, I think there's some bloke at the moment here in New South Wales, he's a mayor or something, saying that it was a genocide, that it was like what we did to Aboriginal people was genocide. I'm not saying it was right, but you know what? Back at those times, that was the normal thing to happen. We don't.
And it wasn't us. It wasn't me. It wasn't
exactly
you. We
right.
weren't there.
And this is the other thing is like we talk about should I get arrested and thrown into jail because my grandfather broke a law? No, that would be ridiculous. If you pitch that to everyone, it would be ridiculous. So hold on, being blamed for something that occurred, way back when. For what Captain Cook did. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. I really struggle to see that side. And I know that makes me a little bit unpopular with sort of both sides, Aboriginal and Australian sometimes. But for me, I just don't get it. I sit there and go, I can't change the past. What I can do is I can work on the future and I can make the best future for everyone involved. But if we consistently are trying to divide and incite and create hate, it's not going to happen. And this is, look, I've called for it for a long time. Jacinta Price, I'd love to see her as one of our first elected female prime minister. I think she's a very sensible, brilliant person. And I think it would also show that it doesn't matter if you're Aboriginal, it doesn't matter if you're what you are. If you are a good person with good morals and you work hard, you can be anything. And I think that's where we need to get back to that as a society, that we can all, we all have this set of ethics and a set of morals that we think is what this country should have. And that's what we have to move forward. And we use that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree completely. And, to, I guess, tie it down to my own personal experiences, like the English colonized a lot of places, and, committed severe atrocities against my ancestors and my people. I'm from Scotland. I was born in Edinburgh in Scotland. Clans were completely wiped out, actual genocide. But I don't hate the English for it. I don't protest them and that sort of thing. I do have a lot of empathy for, generational hurt and that sort of thing. When I see people doing tough, I feel bad about that. But I don't feel guilty. I can empathize with someone and feel sad for someone's circumstance, but I don't feel guilty for a circumstance that I didn't create.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think this is one where if you are not assisting, and I think we do a really good job personally. Again, we have to close the gap. There's lots of funding for Aboriginal people, and I say there's AB study as opposed to Oz study. There's so much support at different universities that I've been a part of and worked with, and you have every opportunity to excel. And I think we need to take stock of that. And we need to say that some people, doesn't matter what color their skin is. I've seen every different type, and I grew up with them. I went to I think my high school was the third worst in New South Wales. I've got plenty of family members that have not done the right thing and had problems with the law and whatnot. Did I? No. I made that choice to be a responsible, good person and to use my skills or talents to get further ahead in life and be a valuable member of society. That was a choice. So I get what you're saying, and I do agree that I do feel unfortunate. I do also think that sometimes it's a choice, and that there are some things that, yes, it might be harder to make that right choice, but you can still make that right choice. There doesn't, like, I look at my father and I've got a lot of respect for him, that he, grew up in housing commission. They had no money, a very big Aboriginal family. Pretty much all his family, or the boys, they all went to jail. He played soccer for Australia. He was a professional soccer player. That was his outlet, was sport, and he worked really hard at doing that, and he didn't want to go down that pathway. He made a choice. He had the exact same circumstances that his other brothers had that ended up in jail. Why didn't he? So, massive props to him, and that was instilled in, I guess, me as well. And I sort of sit there and go, I think sometimes circumstances do impact, but you also have to have some ownership yourself and know right from wrong and make those choices. And sometimes it's a hard choice, but it's got to be done. And that's where this comes down to, when we talk about firearms and things like that. I don't want us like the US. I like the idea that we have vetting. I like the idea that we just won't give anyone a firearm. I think that's, a sensible approach. And I think we need to maintain things like that because I think if you speak to most firearms owners, they want the community safe. It's a hobby, it's a lifestyle, it's, a necessity for some, whatever it might be. But no one wants to see anyone get injured with firearms. That's the opposite. Right. So, you know, I think that's important it's one of those things. Touching back, I just want to jump back because you mentioned before about try shooting. SSAA do that. But again, they're promoting try shooting to shooters.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Car shopping shouldn't feel like preparing for a marathon of paperwork. That's why Carvana makes buying and financing your car easy. From start to finish, search thousands of vehicles with great prices. All online, all on your time. And when you're ready, your new car shows up right at your door. It doesn't get better than that. Buy your car the easy way on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
Yeah, I've only ever seen it advertised at ranges. Yep. I've never seen it in the public
or
space.
On their Facebook. But let's be real, if you're not a shooter, are you following SSAA? I can guarantee you walk down the street and you talk to 10 people and you go, what's SSAA? They will have zero idea unless they have they are a shooter themselves. I tell you what, even
unless there's a member card in their wallet.
And even I reckon even family members of shooters, if you just said what's SSAA, they would have a hard time saying what it is. They probably wouldn't know. So when they're, you know, that promotional stuff is not going to the right people, and I think that's one of the big ones. So, mate, all right, we're getting close to the hour mark, and I want to know where can people follow you? Get it out there so people know where to get these shirts, because I think it's great, and I'd love to see more in the community. That's for sure.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks very much. So Woody Outdoors is my channel. So my occupation is creating marketing content for the firearms industry in Australia. So I produce content for a lot of brands, but anything that I particularly like, I do produce on my own channel as well. And I'm ambassador for a few brands and that sort of thing. So I've got an Instagram account and a YouTube channel, and I have an online store, called woodyoutdoors.com.au/shop. And I sell merch. I sell t-shirts and that sort of thing. I also sell, medical gear. So I sell IFAKs, bleeding control kits. So you can buy, chest seals, tourniquets, that sort of thing. I sell Warfighters Coffee, which is it's a veteran-owned brand of coffee made in Australia. So a good friend of mine, who's a Australian Army veteran, and he owns this company called Australian Warfighters Coffee. So I sell that on there as well. So woodyoutdoors.com.au, and you can find that shirt that I've created. Pre-orders are open until the 31st of January. And then I'll order them and get them all processed. And then depending on demand, I might do a second brand as well for February.
Mate, I love it. I will put all the links in the show notes, guys. So click on that. I will have a image of the shirt as the episode cover art as well.
Thank you,
mate. I love it. And look, I don't think we got to touch on much today about the shooting and your background and whatnot. So I'd love to have you back on so we can actually dive into that a bit more. But I just definitely want to get you on here and push this shirt because I love it. I hope I see some around. That's for sure. So, but yeah, mate, we'll run it back. We'll do it again. It's been good.
Sounds good. Thanks for the chat.
All right, listeners. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. Thanks for tuning in and can't wait to catch you next time. But in the meantime, if you want more, you can find it at linktr.ee/Australian Hunting and Beyonds. That will give you our YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. We'll catch you next time.